Forrester had always been the anchor. The patriarch, the master craftsman, the soul of Forrester Creations. But in recent weeks, something had begun to unravel. At first, it was small, fatigue, momentary disorientation, forgetfulness. Everyone chalked it up to age or stress. Eric himself brushed it off, insisting he was fine, just overworked, just tired. Donna stayed close by his side, devoted as ever, helping him rest, making sure he wasn't alone. But then came the collapse. He blacked out during a board meeting. One minute he was addressing the team, standing tall with sketches in hand. The next, he was on the floor, unconscious, pale, unresponsive. Panic swept through the family. They rushed him to the hospital. The tests were vague. No stroke, no heart attack. Just a strange chemical imbalance. Low blood pressure, a dangerously slow heart rate, and a haze over his mind that no one could explain. The doctors stabilized him, but the underlying cause remained unclear. That's when Bridget came back. As a doctor, and as Eric's daughter, Bridget took control. She requested a full toxicology screen, ran deeper tests, analyzed every shift in his condition. The results shocked her. In his bloodstream, she found a pattern, small traces of a sedative. Not just once, not accidental. It had built up over time. A long-acting drug, subtle enough to avoid detection unless specifically tested for, but potent enough to alter his system. This wasn't a medical failure. It was something else. Something intentional. The family gathered that night. Ridge, Steffi, Brooke, RJ, even Zende. Bridget laid out the findings, her voice clinical but trembling with emotion. Someone has been giving Dad sedatives. Repeatedly. Consistently. This isn't random. It's deliberate. The room exploded. Questions flew. Who? Why? How long? Suspicion turned into chaos until Bridget narrowed the timeline. The dosage pattern matched a very specific window, the late-night hours over the past several weeks. The same nights Donna had been alone with Eric, nursing him, watching over him, comforting him through sleeplessness. All eyes turned to her. Donna froze. Her lips trembled. Tears welled instantly. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear I didn't know it was hurting him. He wasn't sleeping. He was in pain, restless. I was trying to help. Ridge stepped forward. You drugged him? She flinched. It wasn't like that. It was just drops. In his tea. I thought it would help him rest. Brooke jumped in, trying to shield her sister. She wasn't trying to hurt him. You know that, but Bridget was already shaking her head. Whether she meant to or not, the buildup nearly killed him. Then came the fracture. The Forrester family split in two. One side, Brooke, Katie, Hope, rallied behind Donna, insisting she had no malicious intent. That she had acted out of love, not harm. That she'd been overwhelmed, watching the man she loved struggle, and made a terrible mistake. The other side, Ridge, Steffi, even Thomas, demanded accountability. Ridge was livid. You don't experiment with someone's health behind their back. You don't play nurse with sedatives and expect there to be no consequences. Steffi's voice was colder. If this had been anyone else, if this had been a nurse or an assistant doing this to Grandpa, we'd be calling the police. Donna broke. She sobbed uncontrollably, pleading with them to believe she never meant for any of it to go this far. I love him. I was trying to give him peace. But the words didn't land the same anymore. Not with Bridget, not with Ridge, not with Eric still in a hospital bed, his life hanging in a fragile balance. The question hung in the air like smoke. Was this a mistake or something darker? Behind closed doors, Ridge pushed Bridget. Do you think she meant to hurt him? Bridget hesitated. I don't know, but I know what was in his blood. And I know it didn't get there by accident. Meanwhile, Eric woke slowly. His mind was foggy, but when he saw Donna crying at his bedside, something shifted in his expression. He reached for her hand. Weakly, confused. Why? He asked. You did this? Donna collapsed to her knees. I thought I was helping you. I thought you needed rest, but Eric turned away. The trust between them, the thing that had been so powerful, so deep, was fractured. Maybe not gone, but damaged in a way that could not be unseen. The board at Forrester Creations caught wind of the incident. There were rumors, whispers. If the press found out, if the story leaked, it wouldn't just be a personal tragedy. It could become a public scandal. Ridge met with Carter, the family's legal counsel. If she's responsible, we may have to report it. There could be liability. Brooke fought back. Are you really going to hand her over to the police? She made a mistake, but she doesn't deserve to be crucified. But Ridge was resolute. This isn't just about Donna. This is about Dad, about what happens the next time someone crosses a line and we look the other way. If this had gone one dose further, Dad could be dead. That night, another meeting was held. Just family. Just those who mattered. The vote was split. Brooke and Katie argued for compassion. Steffi and Ridge stood for justice. Bridget, emotionally exhausted, said only this: "If it had been any of you lying in that bed, would we still be trying to protect the one who did it?" Silence fell. And outside, in the shadows, someone else was listening. Someone who knew the full story hadn't been told yet. Because Donna might have given the drugs. But the bottle hadn't come from her purse. And the tea hadn't been brewed by her hands every night. Somewhere in the mansion, someone else had been watching. Someone else had reasons. Someone who wasn't done yet. Because this wasn't just about love gone wrong. This was about power. And the war for the Forrester legacy was only beginning. Thomas stood in the hallway of the Forrester mansion. Frozen in place. As the weight of the truth crashed over him like a tidal wave. He had just listened to Bridget's second toxicology report. The sedative traces in Eric's blood had not been from over-the-counter sleeping drops. They were clinical grade, measured, intentional, and more importantly, lethal in large doses. The slow accumulation wasn't a mistake. It was a method. Someone had been systematically poisoning Eric. The truth was brutal. Donna wasn't just guilty of poor judgment. She was trying to kill him. Thomas couldn't breathe. For months, he'd watched Donna play the role of loyal partner. Fawning over Eric, holding his hand, putting on performances of grief and devotion. But behind those doe-eyed looks and fluttery reassurances, she had been plotting something far more sinister. And now, it made sense why Eric's health had declined so fast. Why Donna insisted on being the only one to prepare his food, his tea, his medication. Why she had isolated him, kept others at a distance under the guise of protecting his peace. And then came the real bombshell. Eric had found out. Bridget, after searching through Eric's private desk in his home office, something she had always respected until now, found a sealed envelope labeled "If anything happens to me." Inside, a single flash drive. On it, a short video clip from one of Eric's hidden-in-home cameras, recorded 3 weeks prior. The angle was grainy but clear enough. Donna, late at night, pacing nervously in the kitchen with her phone on speaker. The voice on the other end was a man's. Younger, unfamiliar. Thomas watched the footage again and again. Her words were sharp, urgent. "He's starting to suspect. I found the will in his drawer. Once it's signed, we move fast. We can't afford to wait anymore." Then silence, followed by the sound of glass clinking. She poured something into Eric's teacup. That was the night he had his worst episode. Thomas dropped the drive on the desk, his hands trembling. Eric had known. He hadn't told anyone because he hadn't had time. He must have confronted her and then collapsed. Maybe Donna had escalated after that. Maybe she realized her window was closing. And instead of running, she decided to finish what she started. Thomas stormed out of the study and straight to Ridge. "We have to tell the truth. All of it." At first, Ridge didn't want to believe it. "Donna? You think she..." Thomas cut him off. "She poisoned him. It wasn't about helping him sleep. It wasn't love. She wanted him dead." Ridge stared at his son, face hardening with each word. "Why?" Thomas answered with what Bridget had just discovered: "The reason will update." Donna stood to inherit a staggering share of Eric's assets. Stocks, real estate, a directorial claim in Forrester Creations, and full rights to the Forrester mansion. The change had been made only a month ago, under pressure, when Eric was already mentally compromised. The documents were legal, but they were built on lies. And there was more. The man on the other end of Donna's phone call? Thomas had tracked his voice through a voice recognition program Carter used for contract verification. It belonged to Julian Grant, a former Forrester model turned freelance consultant. He was young, handsome, ambitious, and he'd vanished from the LA scene about 2 months earlier. Now Thomas understood why. Donna and Julian had been lovers. Eric had discovered the affair. And instead of confronting her directly, he'd begun collecting evidence. Donna found out. And rather than risk losing everything, she acted. Quietly, methodically, with a coldness Thomas hadn't thought possible from someone like her. When Thomas told Steffi, her reaction was immediate. "Call the police." But Brooke begged them to stop. "Donna needs help, not prison. We don't know the full picture." But Bridget shook her head. She knew exactly what she was doing. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't stress. This was attempted murder. That night, Ridge made the decision. He handed over the flash drive to the authorities. Donna was arrested the next morning at the hospital. Ironically, while standing at Eric's bedside, whispering sweet nothings into his ear, waiting for him to wake up. She didn't resist. Her expression didn't even change. She only looked at Ridge and said, "He wasn't supposed to live this long." The room went still. Hope sobbed. Katie collapsed. Brooke was silent. And Eric, still weak but now conscious, opened his eyes and whispered only one word. "Why?" Donna was charged with attempted murder, fraud, and will manipulation. Julian Grant was located hiding in Palm Springs. He flipped on Donna instantly, admitting everything. How she had promised him a future of wealth, power, even a position at Forrester once Eric was gone. But with her in custody, that future was dust. Thomas sat with Eric the next day. The old man looked frail but lucid. "You saved me," Eric whispered. Thomas shook his head. "No, you saved yourself. You saw her for what she really was." Eric's recovery would be long, but the betrayal cut deeper than the illness ever did. He had given his heart, his trust, his legacy to someone who wore love like a costume. Now that mask was gone, and in its place, only cold truth remained. The Forrester family was reeling from the shock of Eric's death. The entire world seemed to freeze as the patriarch, the soul of Forrester Creations, was no longer there. It wasn't just the loss of a father, a mentor, or a leader. It was the loss of a symbol of strength that had held their family together through decades of triumphs and tragedies. But as the family tried to come to terms with the grief of losing Eric, the specter of betrayal loomed over every corner of the mansion. Thomas stood before the family in the grand room of the Forrester estate, his face a mask of rage and sorrow. The news of Eric's sudden death had sent ripples through their lives. The hospital had confirmed it was not a natural death, despite the sedatives Donna had given him, and despite the fact that the authorities had begun the process of charging her with attempted murder. Eric's death had come suddenly, and it was clear the poison that had accumulated in his system over time had finally taken its toll. The funeral was scheduled for the following week. It would be the final chapter in a long and storied life. But before they could lay Eric to rest, Thomas knew there was something else that had to be done, something he could no longer keep silent about. Donna had to be exposed for what she had done, not only to Eric but to their entire family. The day before the funeral, Thomas stood at the front of the Forrester mansion, addressing the family who had gathered in the main room. He had already told Ridge, Steffi, and Brooke what he was planning to do. He had warned them that the truth had to come out, no matter how painful. "It's time," Thomas said, his voice shaking with a mixture of anger and grief. "We can't bury the truth along with my father. We can't pretend that Donna wasn't involved in something much darker than we ever imagined. She didn't just betray Eric. She betrayed all of us." Brooke tried to intervene, her eyes brimming with tears. "Thomas, please, this isn't the time." Eric just, "No, Brooke," Thomas cut her off. "This is the time. My father is gone, and Donna is responsible for his death. We all know it, but no one has said it out loud. We can't let her get away with what she's done." Ridge, who had been silent up until this point, looked at his son with a mixture of sadness and concern. "Thomas, I know this is hard, but do you really think this is the way to honor your father? You want to air this dirty laundry before his funeral? Honor my father?" Thomas scoffed, his voice rising. "Do you honestly think my father would want us to pretend this never happened? Do you think he'd want us to sit here and let Donna get away with poisoning him for months? Manipulating him for her own gain?" The room was tense, the air thick with the weight of his words. Thomas's eyes scanned the faces of his family. He saw the disbelief in Brooke's eyes, the conflict in Ridge's. But he saw something else, too, something more painful than the rest. He saw the realization in Steffi's eyes that this wasn't just about Eric. This was about the family, the legacy, and how they could never let this betrayal stand unchallenged. "I know it's hard," Thomas continued, his voice quieter now. "But if we don't speak the truth now, if we don't hold Donna accountable for what she did, then everything we stand for, the values my father worked his entire life to build, will be destroyed, and Donna will get away with murder." Literally, the room fell into an agonizing silence. Finally, Ridge spoke, his voice low and heavy. "You're right, Thomas. We can't let this go. But there has to be a better way than doing this the day before the funeral." Thomas didn't back down. "I can't wait anymore, Dad. Eric deserves justice. Our family deserves justice. We can't bury the truth just to protect Donna." With that, Thomas turned and walked toward the door, determined to make sure that the world knew the full extent of Donna's crimes before they laid Eric to rest. The next day, the Forrester mansion was filled with people, family, friends, business associates, and the press, who had all come to pay their respects to Eric Forrester. The somber atmosphere was thick with grief but also with something else. Something in the air, palpable, almost as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. No one knew what was coming. As the service began, Thomas stood at the front with Ridge, Steffi, and Brooke. They were all visibly torn, tearing between honoring Eric's legacy and confronting the haunting truth of what had happened to him. But Thomas's resolve was unwavering. He knew what he had to do. The service reached its climactic moment, the eulogy. The room was quiet, Brooke, who had been holding it together throughout the service, stood up to speak about Eric. Her words were kind and full of love, but they were also laced with an unspeakable sadness. She spoke about how Eric had been the heart of the Forrester family. How his creativity had built an empire. She spoke about his kindness, his generosity, and his undying love for his family. But as she spoke, Thomas's heart grew heavy. He couldn't keep the truth buried any longer. Before Brooke could sit down, Thomas stood up. His voice cut through the room with a quiet but cutting force. Before we continue, there's something that needs to be said. Something that's been hidden from all of us for far too long. The room fell into a stunned silence. Everyone turned toward Thomas, uncertain of what he was about to say. I loved my father, Thomas continued, his voice shaking. And I believe he loved us all. But what we didn't know was that his life, his health, was stolen from him. And I'm not going to stand here and let that go unspoken. Donna's eyes widened as Thomas's words hit their mark. Eric was poisoned, Thomas said, his eyes locking onto Donna. For months, he was poisoned by someone he trusted, someone who claimed to love him. And that person, the one responsible for his decline, is sitting right here with us today. The room gasped. Donna Forrester, Thomas's voice rang out, harsh and unforgiving. You poisoned Eric. You drugged him with sedatives to make him weak, to control him, and to secure your future. You manipulated him, lied to him, and killed him, just so you could inherit his fortune and marry your lover, Julian Grant. You knew what you were doing. You were trying to take everything from him. And you almost succeeded. The silence that followed was deafening. Every eye in the room was on Donna, who now looked as though she had been struck by lightning. Her face drained of color as her world came crashing down around her. Thomas, please, Brooke begged, her voice breaking. Not now. Not here. But Thomas couldn't stop. The truth was out now. And it needed to be heard. It's done, Mom, he said. We can't let her go unpunished. Eric deserves justice. Tears rolled down Donna's cheeks as she stood up, her hands trembling. Thomas, please, but the words couldn't save her. No one was listening anymore. The damage had been done. She had been exposed. And now, she would have to face the consequences of her actions. The room, once full of sorrow for Eric's passing, was now filled with anger, disbelief, and betrayal. The family had been torn apart. Eric had been taken from them far too soon. And the legacy of Forrester Creations would never be the same. The true tragedy was not just Eric's death. It was the destruction of everything he had built, the trust he had given, and the people he had loved. The funeral continued, but now it was a bitter affair. Justice, like the grief, hung heavy in the air. And as Donna was escorted out of the service by the authorities, the Forrester family was left to pick up the pieces of their shattered world. And for Thomas, the truth had finally been spoken, but at what cost?